Action. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Back again with my beloved and dear friend Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. So many of you saw, I guess, a couple of weeks ago now. We were reading together, so we're back again now post Radhastami and Prabhupada's Vyas Puja. So Bhaktivedanta Prabhu is doing some wonderful service here at the temple, doing the noon transfer of Krishna's Raj Bhoga offering. So, and then of course afterwards, then we get the opportunity to honor a little bit of that Raj Bhoga. Yes.
Yeah. That's the perk of the job.
Yeah,
definitely one of the perks.
One of them, yeah. Courtesy of Mother Chandravali, who does the cooking and the offering for their lordships. So, but really, the real feast today is the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're going to continue our reading, and we're in the third canto, chapter 14, Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening, and we're going to start with text number 13. So we'll say the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, Prabhu, would you like to read?
In days long ago, our father, the most opulent Daksha, who was affectionate to his daughters, asked each of us separately whom we would prefer to select as our husband. Shall I read the purport?
Yes, please.
It appears from this verse that free selection of a husband was allowed by the father, but not by free association. The daughters were asked separately to submit their selection of a husband who was famous for his acts and personality. The ultimate selection depended on the choice of the father.
Any thoughts?
Well, it's different these days.
Different these days, mate. It certainly is.
Yeah, this is the Vedic system, which takes into account the psychological and the emotional makeup of the individuals who are about to get married. So the parents would be involved in trying to find the best match for them possible, so as to ensure that both parties would be happy and have a successful marriage, a marriage which lasted. Nowadays people get married mostly because they fancy each other. That's basically that's basically how it is. And then a little way along the line, the first flames of attraction wear off, and then there's nothing very much to hold people together, unfortunately. So sadly, we see a lot of people suffering from divorce, and this is particularly painful when children are involved. And it causes a lot of disruption and disturbance, to the individuals and also to society, because then who looks after the children? We have so many cases of single parent families, and then they become unhappy, the children become unhappy, they have further problems in their life, and the cycle goes on. So stability is something which is not the norm these days.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. Yeah, in fact, probably most people come from broken homes these days, especially in the West. In one sense, I was thinking though that this verse kind of alludes to something that usually we hear about arranged marriages, and I think I've mentioned before that I know many older couples, mostly from India, who they met their husband or wife on at their wedding, and that was either the first or second, maximum third meeting. So like that. But those would be when we think about arranged marriage, it's like that. You just hear about, okay, you're getting married next month to such and such, and that's kind of it. Prabhupada would talk about how the young girl, when she was like, 8, 9, 10, the mother would help her to cook, and then she would serve the boy who was maybe like 12, 13, so a bit older. And then because of that, she got used to serving him as a child, and then as she got older, they weren't necessarily married at that point, but then as she got older, and naturally the hormones awaken and start to feel attraction, then there's a natural attraction for that person. So Prabhupada would speak about that. But here it's an interesting concept. He's saying, that the girl actually would say, no, Dad, I like him. I kind of fancy him, but at the same time, of course, we have to remember that these aren't just ordinary people. This is Daksha is the father, so he's a progenitor and a direct son of Lord Brahma, and his daughter. So these are very special and empowered personalities. But it seemed like there was a little bit of some flexibility there. But Prabhupada says very clearly, and as you mentioned, it's like, but not by free association. So it's not that you go and find a husband down the pub or at the movie theater, or by dating several different guys, Yeah, there's a whole conversation that can be had around this. Maybe we'll carry on and do some more reading. Excuse me. Translation. So this is text 14. Our well-wishing father, Daksha, after knowing our intentions, handed over 13 of his daughters unto you. And since then, we have all been faithful. So now, this is one man, Kashyapa Muni, and he has 13 wives. So these are not ordinary people. Purport. Generally, the daughters were too shy to express their opinions before their father. But the father would accept the daughter's intentions through someone else, such as a grandmother, to whom the grandchildren had free access. King Daksha collected the opinions of his daughters and thus handed over 13 to Kashyapa. Every one of Diti's sisters was a mother of children. Therefore, since she was equally faithful to the same husband, why should she remain without children? This is an important point, actually, that Srila Prabhupada is reminding us that in the past time that Diti was pressurizing Kashyapa, not just because, he says, not just because she was feeling lusty and wanted to enjoy with him, but because she was feeling she wanted to have children. And her other sisters all had children, but she didn't have children yet. So therefore, she didn't just want to enjoy with Kashyapa for the sake of enjoying, but she wanted to enjoy with him for the sake of begetting children. So like that. So that's a really important point also. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just the idea of having 13 wives. It's kind of yeah, it's well beyond most people these days. I mean, I don't think I've heard of anybody who has 13 wives. I mean, maybe there's some Arabs
in
still
the
do that.
East,
In the Middle East, they still do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for one thing, you have to be very wealthy.
Likely,
you know, and also how do the wives cooperate with each other under such a situation?
Well, that's...
I mean, it's a very... This is, you know, when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, you're entering another world, literally another world. I mean, you know, the way we live nowadays is so far removed from how things were in these times.
Yes. Very different customs, and of course earlier you may remember that it mentions that there was some kind of feeling of competition between the other co-wives, and we hear that Diti is feeling that. She's feeling like, well, a little bit maybe jealous. Why do they have, but I don't have, yeah, like that. So it can be very difficult. It's not. Of course, maybe as a man you might think, 13 wives, 13 beautiful women. Oh my God! But then you have to look after them and take care of them. It's not just a matter of having 13 wives for you to exploit and try to enjoy. But to maintain them properly and look after them, and to maintain children that come with the relationship. So totally different world. I think Prabhupada also says that, in the modern day, in Kali Yuga, for a man to properly maintain one wife and children is like a great, I think the Bhagavatam says, to be able to maintain just one wife and children is
considered to be like a hero.
Yeah.
That's a real achievement these days, isn't it?
Get the truth, brother. Okay, would you like to read text 15?
Text 15, right. O lotus-eyed one, kindly bless me by fulfilling my desire. When someone in distress approaches a great person, his pleas should never go in vain. Here's the purport. Diti knew well that her request might be rejected because of the untimely situation, but she pleaded that when there is an emergency or a distressful condition, there is no consideration of time or situation. So she's appealing to the chivalrous idea that when someone in distress approaches a great person, his pleas should never go in vain. So this is kind of, I think, part of the Kshatriya code, that a Kshatriya should never refuse someone who approaches them, either for charity or even if a woman approaches a Kshatriya and asks to be married, the Kshatriya would accept. So it's a nice kind of way of being, but there's obviously a lot of use of scripture, if you like. There's a kind of dependence on precedent which has been set in scriptural codes, like in Manu Samhita, which outlines the way that we should behave in society. So here Prabhupada says that when there's an emergency or a distressful condition, there is no consideration of time or situation. So while there are rules and regulations, these can be adjusted. So Diti is here, knows about this, and she knows that her husband knows about this. So she's, using this as a way to...
manipulating is a word that comes to mind.
a way to get her own way, or fulfill her own.
Well, similar to what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita, right? He also tries to, Kshatriya is meant to act like this, Kshatriya is meant to act like that, and and he's trying to wind Arjuna up to get him to go out there and fight. You'll be considered, infamous. You won't be considered, and honor is worse than death for a Kshatriya. So understanding the different codes, then one can use them to their advantage also. But it's true in one sense, and of course we understand also, right? I mean, like you might have your scheduled program. I mean, you might have to work on a certain day, but if you get a phone call from school and your child's been taken to the hospital or fell over and bumped his head, it's not like, well, I have to work. Immediately, boss, I have to go. My child's in danger. Oh goodness, please get out of here. Hopefully your boss will be like that.
Hope so.
But so if there's an emergency, then time or situation, everything becomes adjustable or malleable. Let's read one more, so you can read.
Okay. So, O hero, Vidura, Diti, being thus afflicted by the contamination of lust, and therefore poor and talkative, was pacified by the son of Maruchi in suitable words. And here's the purport. When a man or woman is afflicted by the lust of sex desire, it is to be understood as sinful contamination. Kashyapa was engaged in his spiritual activities, but he did not have sufficient strength to refuse his wife, who was thus afflicted. He could have refused her with strong words expressing impossibility, but he was not as spiritually strong as Vidura. Vidura is addressed here as a hero, because no one is stronger in self-control than a devotee of the Lord. It appears that Kashyapa was already inclined to have sexual enjoyment with his wife, and because he was not a strong man, he tried to dissuade her only with pacifying words.
Interesting. Interesting statement. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, it takes a lot of strength to refuse such a request. Obviously, the famous example is Haridas Thakur.
Yeah.
So recently we had the disappearance day of Haridas Thakur, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the pastime where he was approached by a prostitute in the middle of the night in a secluded place, and she was performing all kinds of postures and enticing movements to try and disturb his mind and break his vow of celibacy in order to
discredit him.
To discredit him. But Haridas Thakur was able to withstand her allurements easily, and because he was absorbed in pure devotional service.
And the higher taste.
He had that higher taste, and that's what we're aspiring for, is to get that higher taste. And I was reading this morning in the Nectar of Devotion, there's one of the symptoms of devotional service, pure devotional service, is that all other aspects of even liberation are considered to be insignificant. So most of us have no idea what liberation would be like, but it's pretty good. It's better than it's better than most happiness, or pretty much any happiness that we get from material sense gratification. That's why all these yogis aspire for it. But for a devotee, Prabhupada said that even a drop of the happiness that you get from pure devotional service is far exceeds any ocean of happiness you get from any kind of liberation. And what to speak of merging with the Lord, pure devotees don't even aspire to live with the Lord. They're happy just from the service that they're getting, the opportunity to serve the Lord. So it's the service itself, that's what gives the most relishable nectar. So it'd be nice to have some of that.
Yeah, I think that the idea is that when you get a taste of that, then it's easy to not be interested in these other things. Although I think it's a wonderful example, Haridas Thakur, because we know that different great personalities were allured. Subari Muni had been performing for like 10,000 years, holding his breath underwater, and he saw two fish copulate, and that was it. He had to come out and get married, Different personalities perform so much austerity, but then need to get married because of desire. But like you were saying with Haridas Thakur, he just wasn't interested. But I always find it interesting that Haridas Thakur, he didn't just he also wasn't averse. In a sense, he didn't say, "No, wicked woman, you go away, get out of here." It wasn't like, "I'm not interested in you," when meanwhile you can see, okay, he's disturbed. But he wasn't disturbed, and he said, no problem. I'll happily enjoy with you. Please just come and sit. But first, I have to finish my rounds. And then he chanted all night. So he had taste, and he obviously wasn't going to enjoy with her, but maybe he meant, I'll enjoy with you by chanting the holy name. but he wasn't crass or rude, and he wasn't averse either. So he didn't kind of put up, too fake, "No, get away from me, wicked woman." But he was actually like, no, please. And by dint of his absorption in devotional service, he was able to also, convert her or, purify her heart by his sincere chanting. So he utilized her techniques against her even, So, which is an interesting point. So like that. But this point about Kashyapa already inclined and not really being such a strong man it's an interesting point and probably could warrant a lot more looking into. I don't really know so much about the background. He's the son of Marichi. Marichi is, isn't it? He's son of Marichi. Who passed by the son of Marichi. So I always think there's so much backstory to all of these personalities as well. It's just to do deep dive in the Bhagavatam and really understand more and more about each of the personalities. But I think we'll conclude here.
Okay.
And I'd just like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching Bhagavatam Bites. And thank you, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, for making time to join us and to hear and chant together.
Thank you.
As I mentioned before, he's an avid reader of the Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's books, so it's always a blessing to get the opportunity to read with you.
It's always a great privilege and a pleasure to have your association. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.